pulls it down and throws, and it is...
Remember, folks, it's important not to jump the gun. Just because a player has an amazing year and looks like they have future superstar written all over them, doesn't always mean that they're going to live up to those expectations. When you think of the biggest one-year wonders in NFL history, you think of guys like Derek Anderson in 2007, Ickey Woods in 1988, Don Majkowski in 1989, and Peyton Hillis in 2010. There's no shortage of active NFLers who, to date, only have one great season under their belt. Technically speaking, they can't officially go down as one-year wonders until their playing careers end. But based on what we've seen thus far, these 10 active NFL players look like they'll eventually join the one-year wonder club.
I just can't wait to get there. Get those old feelings back when I was the young Sammy and
Carson Wentz. You really got a feel for Wentz. If it weren't for that season-ending ACL tear in 2017, maybe he'd still be the star quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles. Maybe he'd even be a multi-time Super Bowl champion. The Eagles traded up with the Cleveland Browns so they could select Wentz second overall in 2016. After an uneven rookie year, Wentz broke out in 2017, completing 60.2% of his pass attempts for 3,296 yards, 33 touchdowns, and only 7 picks. Unfortunately, Wentz suffered his torn ACL in Week 14 against the Los Angeles Rams. The MVP frontrunner was done for the year, but as everyone remembers, backup Nick Foles saved the day and led the Eagles to an unlikely Super Bowl championship. Wentz missed 5 games in 2018 and was up and down throughout the year. Foles wound up leading the Eagles back to the postseason, getting to the divisional round before falling to the New Orleans Saints. Wentz's play was solid, if not unspectacular, in 2019, but then it all came crashing down in 2020. Doug Peterson benched him for the final 4 games in favor of Jalen Hurts. And, well, we know how that's worked out for Philly. Wentz was traded to the Indianapolis Colts in 2021, but a late season collapse and humiliating Week 18 loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars was the final straw. The Colts gave up on Wentz after 1 year and sent him to the Washington Commanders. Wentz started the first 6 games before suffering a broken finger, which prompted Washington to use Taylor Heinicke for the majority of the year. Wentz had just 11 touchdowns and 9 picks in the 7 games he started for the Commanders. At this point, he looks like he'll have to accept backup roles going forward. Wentz came as advertised in 2017, but has not looked anything like a superstar ever since. Jeez, you really got a feel for the guy. Mitch Trubisky. A lot of people make Trubisky out to be an awful quarterback, but the stats would say otherwise. It's easy to forget that he was actually a very good signal caller for the Chicago Bears in his 2018 sophomore season. That year, Trubisky went 11-3 as a starter, completing 2/3 of his pass attempts for 3,223 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 12 picks. He added a career-high 421 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns as well. Trubisky helped Chicago to a surprise 12-win season and an NFC North Division title that ended with a heartbreaking double-doink loss to the Eagles in the wildcard round. Sadly, 2018 was not a sign of what was to come for Trubisky, but rather, it would end up being his peak. Trubisky barely averaged over 200 passing yards per game in 2019, throwing 17 touchdowns against just 10 picks. He and Nick Foles played musical chairs at quarterback in 2020. The Bears snuck into the postseason with an 8-8 record, but fell to the Saints in the wildcard round. The Bears moved on from Trubisky and let him walk to free agency. He served as Josh Allen's backup in Buffalo for the 2021 season before joining the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2022. In 7 games, he had 4 touchdowns against 5 picks, eventually losing the starting job to rookie Kenny Pickett. Trubisky will be a solid backup from here, but not a star quarterback. That's just the reality. And yes, we're gonna remind Bears fans once again, their team passed on Patrick Mahomes in favor of Trubisky. Ouch. Chase Young. If there is one player on the list who could prove us wrong, it's Young. He burst onto the scene as a rookie, recording 7.5 sacks, 4 fumbles, 4 pass defenses, and 3 fumble recoveries. Young helped Washington to a surprise NFC East Division crown and captured Defensive Rookie of the Year honors. He missed almost half the 2021 season after suffering a torn ACL in Week 10. Before that injury, he was hit hard by the sophomore slump, recording a mere 1.5 sacks, 2 pass defenses, and 2 forced fumbles. Young missed the majority of 2022 and eventually returned for 3 games. He had 0 sacks in those contests, though. Don't forget that the number 2 pick of the 2020 draft was hyped as a generational pass rushing prospect. But 9 sacks in 27 games is not generational. It's up to Young to stay healthy and prove us wrong in 2023. Dante Fowler Jr. The Jacksonville Jaguars drafted the Florida product 3rd overall in 2015, but they'd lived to regret the move rather quickly. Fowler missed his entire 2015 rookie year after suffering a torn ACL in May. He lasted just 2.5 seasons in Duval County, recording a mere 14 sacks, 5 pass defenses, and 3 forced fumbles in 39 games. Ahead of the 2018 trade deadline, Fowler was traded to the Los Angeles Rams. He had a minimal impact on the NFC Champions roster that year, but finally put it all together in 2019, recording 11.5 sacks and 6 pass defenses. All career bests to go along with 2 forced fumbles. The Atlanta Falcons handed Fowler a 3-year deal worth $45 million in 2020 free agency, but they would also regret that really quickly. Fowler tallied just 7.5 sacks in his 2 seasons there, and went on to join the Dallas Cowboys in 2022. Fowler was fine in a limited role in Big D, notching 6 sacks and a pair of forced fumbles, but his 11.5 sack season in 2019 was clearly a one-off. He's serviceable as a rotational player, but he's never going to get close to stardom again. Michael Gallup. Gallup showed some promise in his 2018 rookie year by catching 33 passes for 507 yards and 2 touchdowns. If Dak Prescott didn't suffer an ankle injury in Week 5 of 2020, maybe Gallup tops his 2019 career year. But with Andy Dalton spending the majority of the year as the starter, Gallup's stats dropped to 59 catches, 843 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Gallup was limited to 9 games in 2021 and wound up missing 3 games in 2022. And even then, he totaled just 74 catches and 4 TDs over those 2 seasons. He averaged 49.4 yards per game in 2021 and 30.3 yards per game in 2022. I guess we shouldn't be surprised that he couldn't replicate that monster 2018 season. Gallup is just more of a number 3 receiver after all, and definitely not the perennial Pro Bowler that Jerry Jones probably wishes that he was. Romeo Okwara. After the 2022 season, Okwara's 7th in the NFL, his career sack total stood at 23. 10 of those came with the Detroit Lions in 2020. If that's not a one-year wonder, then I don't know what is. The former Notre Dame standout has fared well considering he signed with the New York Giants as an undrafted free agent in 2016. After 2 seasons there, he landed in Motor City and enjoyed an expanded role with the Lions. Okwara went from 7.5 sacks in 2018 down to 1.5 in 2019 before his 2020 career year, in which he logged 10 sacks and a career-high 3 forced fumbles. Okwara, like the aforementioned Dante Fowler, is a useful defensive player in a limited role. Also, like Fowler, Okwara showed signs of being a Pro Bowler for 1 season, and then he went back to being an average Joe. Devonte Parker. Parker has all the tools to be a star in the NFL, but for some reason, it only came together way back when in the 2019 season. Parker went off in 2019 with Ryan Fitzpatrick as his main starting quarterback, hauling in 72 receptions for 1,202 yards and 9 touchdowns. You may recall him burning the 2019 Defensive Player of the Year Stephon Gilmore in that Week 17 regular season finale, which cost the New England Patriots a first-round bye. But Parker has been nothing close to that type of dominant player ever since. A trade to the Patriots in 2022 did little to help revive Parker's career. He had just 31 receptions for 539 yards and a trio of touchdowns. Oh well, I mean, he'll always have 2019. Eric Armstead. The San Francisco 49ers had too many quality pass rushers in 2019, and GM John Lynch had to sacrifice one of them. He chose star defensive tackle DeForest Buckner, who was traded to the Indianapolis Colts for a 2020 first-round pick. Lynch extended linebacker Eric Armstead, coming off a career year for $85 million over 5 years. The move felt like a risk at the time, given that Armstead wasn't much of an impact player over his first 4 seasons. And sure enough, it looks like a regrettable move 3 years later. In 2019, Armstead racked up 10 sacks and had a superb Pro Football Focus grade of 89.8. The 49ers reached Super Bowl 54, but fell to Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. Armstead received his extension 1 month later. Sadly, he has recorded just 9.5 total sacks since signing that extension, and his PFF numbers have fallen below 80 each year. He went from elite in 2019 to slightly above average. That is still quite the drop-off. Armstead's progression has been widely overlooked since the 49ers just continue to roll out an elite defense that carried them to 2021 and 2022 NFC Championship game appearances. But that doesn't take away the fact that he is still a one-hit wonder. Sammy Watkins. The Buffalo Bills traded up to snag Clemson wideout Sammy Watkins with the number 4 selection in 2014. He caught 65 receptions for 982 yards and 6 touchdowns, but the speedster would turn it up another notch in year 2. In 2015, Watkins finished with 60 catches for 1,047 yards and 9 touchdowns. He looked like a future superstar in the making for Buffalo. Well, fast forward almost a decade later, and it turns out that Watkins was a one-year wonder all along. Watkins was traded to the Los Angeles Rams in 2017, but also struggled to find a role, even in Sean McVay's high-powered offense. In 2018, the Kansas City Chiefs signed Watkins to a 3-year contract. Granted, Watkins was a solid number 3 pass catcher in KC behind Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, and he made some big plays in their championship-winning season in 2019. But statistically speaking, Watkins has been a merely average number 3 or number 4 receiver. He had an unproductive 1-year stint with the Baltimore Ravens in 2021 and lasted just 3 games with the Green Bay Packers in 2022 before being placed on waivers, where he was reclaimed by Baltimore. If he's healthy, Watkins is good for 400 to 500 yards a season, so basically around half of what he put up in his career year back in 2015. Gardner Minshu II. The Jaguars signed Super Bowl 52 MVP Nick Foles in 2019 free agency, hoping that he'd be their main starting quarterback. Little did they know that an injury to Foles would open the door for Gardner Minshu II. And the little-known 6th-round pick out of Washington State would actually be their guy in 2019. Minshew appeared in 14 games for the Jaguars that season, starting 12 of them altogether. He became a fan favorite because of his awesome mustache, but also because his play was so eye-popping given the low expectations in Duval County. Minshew threw 21 touchdowns against only 6 interceptions, finishing 6-6 as Jacksonville's starter. Not only that, but Minshew orchestrated 3 game-winning drives in his rookie year. Unfortunately, the party was short-lived in Jacksonville. Minshew struggled in 2020, losing 7 of 8 starts while throwing 16 touchdowns against 5 picks. The Jaguars finished as football's worst team and drafted Trevor Lawrence first overall in 2021, signaling the end of the Minshew era in Jacksonville. The Jaguars wound up trading him to the Eagles in 2021, where he served as a backup to Jalen Hurts. Minshew actually looked pretty good in the limited action he saw in 2021 and 2022, but it doesn't look like there's a future for him as a starter. Instead, he's gonna have to settle for being a quality backup and a one-year wonder. But which other current NFL players look like one-year wonders? Let us know in the comment section below. If you liked this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.